Hi everyone, good evening. Today I'll be walking us through the significance of the right data type in Power BI. I'm Femi Ibamiji. I have 6 years plus experience in data science and artificial intelligence, and I've built several AI and ML solutions and delivered top analytical solutions to both public and private sector clients. Today we'll be walking through right data type in Power BI. Why do we need to get the correct configuration for our data type? And why is this even an important part of Power BI or an important part of our report? And then I will start by emphasizing that our business intelligence tool is a tool that helps us to increase our company's productivity. So it means the primary purpose, the reason in the first place why we are building a report is for us to be able to build something that can give management a kind of a decision-making power. They can have a dashboard they can look at and be able to get insight that can aid their decision and action towards ensuring the companies become more productive. And then that's why it's good to know that BI tools is a tool that is very important for every organization. As a matter of fact, like the way I always say it, every business needs a business intelligence tool. Because trust me, there is no business today that do not do reporting. And then if you do reporting as a business, it simply means if you are not doing it the automated way, it means you still buy the idea of doing manual daily reporting. Probably you still have some analyst somewhere that will resume day in, day out, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then go to your repository of data, pick data from several sources. So let's look at a scenario whereby you even have a kind of a warehouse. So you have an ERP used to manage your warehouse, and then you have a data emanating from that particular sector of your business, section of your business rather. Let's say you also have your sales channel, like a kind of a web platform where people buy your product. You have data emanating from there, and so on and so forth. Now, the data analyst then will then need to go to each of these sections of the business and gather data from this section towards making sure that you then create an insight that you get. But in a way, you spend hours doing this. Power BI is just like a way, or BI generally is a way by which you can automate this kind of process. The way to connect to this multiple data source within your business, and then being able to create insight that is a kind of an automated approach that, with a scheduled refresh or a manual refresh or whatever type you've configured, you can be able to get a real-time insight about your business, without having to wait for an analyst to come and do a 5 to 10 hours reporting. And then that's why it's good to emphasize that BI tools gathers information in one location from several sources of your business and then models it to create a kind of a decision tool that can, or let me say, a support tool that can aid your decision making. And one of the key concepts you would meet when trying to work with Power BI as one of the top BI tool is data types. I've seen a lot of reports that, when it's presented and I try to do a walkthrough, I feel one of the reasons why those reports are actually not creating the insight they would have created is because the data is not in the right type. And then I'll walk through that. Data types in Power Query is just like a kind of a term that is used to represent, the kind of feature that has to do with how do I classify all the values within a particular feed to ensure that they have a common type. So an example is, let's say I have a sales amount column. So my sales amount column, for example, I would want to do stuff like getting sum of sales, getting sales by month, getting sales average, and so on and so forth. So it means for me to be able to do this, if I had formatted my sales column, that's the sales feed, as a text feed, then it becomes very difficult for me to be able to do those aggregation. So data types in Power Query or Power BI generally is what handles this aspect of your visualization, ensuring that you have the right column, and then every data in that column conforms to a particular standard, and that's data type. And we have various data types, the test, the decimal point, and so on and so forth. But this section will not be going deeper into each of these data types. We have another section where we are going to look at individual data types and see the best use case for each of these data types. But for now, I want to look at why do we even need to use data type in the first place? Why do we need to ensure our report or our data that we are feeding into the report has the right data type? And then there is also a functionality of automated data type detection in Power BI. This is worth mentioning because you might want to replicate some of the things I want to do, which I would love you to. And then you should also be aware that Power BI, because Power BI even believes that data type is primary to your report building. And that's why this is even kind of included as kind of an automated approach by the time you load in your data set. So there are two different ways Power BI can also detect data type automatically. One of them is if you are loading data from a structured data source like a database, Power BI attempts to get the data type from the table you are bringing in. So when you are bringing a table from, let's say, MySQL or a PostgreSQL, there's a data type that has been defined in the database already. And then when it arrives in Power BI can leverage this kind of information already to be able to define its own data type. There's also a concept of unstructured sources, like when you have Excel, CSV, text files, and so on and so forth. So Power BI attempts to inspect the values in the column, that's in the particular field, and uses this to automatically detect the correct data type for your report or for your data. So let's jump on practical. Let's get our hands dirty. I'll go to Power BI now, open Power BI, and then I'll try to get in a data set. So I'll just click on get data to get a data set. And then I'll be bringing a CSV data set just to demonstrate us the data type explanation I've given so far, and then try to see how important this is in our report creation. So I'll click on connect, and then I'll bring in a sample data set. It says data sample is a sample data set downloaded from Cargo. So I'll just load that in, and after loading it in, I have two options to load our transform data. This is discussed in other sections, and then but for now we are focusing on data type. We also have other stuff that has been discussed in other sections, and then we could see this is a comma separated says data sample, and I will leave the delimiter as comma, and then you would see the data type detection I just talked about. So because I'm importing this as a CSV, data type detection is happening based on the first 200 rows or based on the entire data set, or I can choose do not detect data type. So I'll select do not detect data type, and then I'll go ahead to click on transform data to load this data into Power Query Editor. So when this gets to Power Query Editor, let me try to hide a few things to get more space for my data. So let me close query settings, and let me reduce the size of this guy. Yeah, so let me just collapse it. Now we have this is an example of data set we've brought in. Remember, we had selected do not detect data type automatically, and that's why for now we could see so this is where we see data type. If you go to the left hand corner of your column, you will see the type of data type that your current column has. So you could see this like a text data type. How do I know it's text? If you look at this icon and you look at this entire option, when you click on this guy, you would realize that this is associated with text. So that's to say this particular column is read as text at the moment. This is read as text. So every column is read as text as the default, since we've not made any automated detection. So I'll go ahead to to just say let me promote this guy so that we have this guy as the column. So what I want to do is, by default, we only have column 1, column 2 to the end as column title. I want to promote this first row to become the column. So I'll just come to my home tab, and under this option, I'll select use first row as header, and then my first row is promoted to become an header. But you will also observe something there. After I promoted my first row to become an header, all my data types were updated. It auto detects data type. This is what would have happened if I had not cancelled detect data type automatically when I was trying to load in my data. So I can view my query settings again and then undo the change type setting. Yeah, so after I undo that, so the focus now is just on data type. So ignore every other stuff I'm trying to do. There will be a detailed walkthrough on that later on around view. What are the different settings under the view, and then how do we use different features on this particular screen you are seeing. So, but now you could see my data type is no longer there. Let me leave this open too. My data type is no longer, there. I now have everything returned back to ABC, 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 and so on and so forth. So let's imagine I go ahead to load this data set now. Now observe two columns. I only want to work with two columns for now. Observe the sales column. So sales column is supposed to be like the sales amount in terms of amount that has been paid for that purchase. And then the other date is supposed to be when that order was placed. And then I want to go, one of the insights I want to create, for example, is that I want my management to be able to see sales by month, which is reasonable. I want to be able to see, for example, what's our sales for January, our sales for February, our sales for March. Or I want to be able to see our sales by year. Or I want to be able to see total sales, and so on and so forth. But let me go ahead to load this guy into Power BI without applying any data type settings. So I'll come to Home and I'll click on Close and Apply. So this will save whatever changes I have here and then load my data into Power BI from Power Query Editor. So waiting for that to load. And now I have my data loaded successfully. So on the right hand side, I can see my table and all the fields that are available. So all the fields you can see here is the same as what we have on columns in our Power Query Editor before we arrived here. So let me just do a simple visualization. Nothing too fancy for now. So I'll just make it big because I want you to see a point. And then I'll select, let me select on my axis, I want to put order date. And then I want to put by sales amount. Here is the sales amount by sales on the value tab. Values, sales. Now, observe something. Two things are happening on this chart. One is that you would see that it's treating my date like a random string text. Like just you enter a random text like the way you enter name of customer, Femi, Kunle, Paul, and so on and so forth. It's not treating it like a date. So it's actually difficult for me to even click here and drill down, for example, to be able to see sales by month or sales by year. So indirectly, to a manager looking at this is not getting enough insight from just looking at this random date. I doubt if a manager will be able to create any insight or will be able to get any actionable insight from looking at dates on the chart. Additionally, for the values, you would see for the sales, it just did a count, like a count of sales. I can't have other values like, let me say I want to see sum by date. I want to see anything. It's not possible. Why? Because sales column is also coming here as a text column. So you would observe that it's the same usage I would have if I'm using a row. So let's say I put in another chart and then I still use my order date. Then on my values, if I decide to put a column that is by default not even a number. So let me say I pick phone number. No, phone number still has some number. So let me pick something that's not even related to number, like state. And I just drag it state to values. Observe that I still got the same count, the same way I got for the sales column. That's to tell you that what was happening here, what was happening on this page 1 is similar to what's happening on page 2. So it means this Power BI report now is treating our sales feed the same way it will treat our state feed, which is not what we want. Or the same way it will even treat our first name feed or our last name feed. So to do this now, let's go back to Power Query Editor and select the right data type for these two guys, the order dates and the sales column. And let's see the difference between what we have currently and what we are going to have. So let me delete this page. Delete. So I'm going to come back and do this chart. So let me go back to Power Query. I can go back there by clicking on Transform Data. So this takes me back to Power Query Editor. And then I'll just look for the order date, the sales. Let me start with sales. And I can select fixed decimal number as data type for order date. Like I said, I will explain in some other sections, in some other videos, how to differentiate between different data types and which one to use at the right time. But for now, I'm using a fixed decimal place because you could see it allows me to have these two decimal places, and then I have this in the right format that actually depicts that I'm trying to show this like a kind of a sales amount. And then I will also change for other dates. I'll change it to a date column. Now I got an error. So this is, in Power BI, when it comes to changing data type, by default, you will see that my date format, for example, has month, day, and year. Month, day, and year. So that's like 8/25/2003. But the current global regional settings in my Power BI is set to a country that uses month, that uses day, month, and then year. And that's why this guy was showing me an error. And because you could see I also have a time column. So let me try a date time first. So you could see I got the correct value for some. Why for some I got an error? Because of the same reason I just talked about. So what will I do? I can change this using local by going to other dates, and I go to using local, and in the pop-up I'll just select date time, and this time around I will look for a country that uses the format we have in this feed. So I think United States uses that format. So you could see a month, a day, and then a year. So I'll click on OK. And you can see my error now is 0%. So that's my column quality. So that means I have the right data set for this data type for this guy, other date now. So let me fix this guy again. Fixed decimal type, and then let me click on close and apply to go back to Power BI. And that's loaded successfully. So I'm going to go ahead and redo this guy now. I could actually edit it, but I just want to redo it straight. So let me say I just bring in the chart again, following the same process I used earlier. And for the axis this time around, I'm still picking other date. You can see the data type for other date has even changed. It's now showing this a date. Let me drag it to axis. Observe something. Immediately I drag it to axis, I now have access to year, quarter, month, and day. Let me close quarter for now. Let me even close day. So let me just work with year and month for now. And on the values, I want to work with sales. I'll just drag it to the values column, and you can see what I'm able to get now. Is this not more interesting? That now I can see total sales amount by year. So a manager could quickly look at this dashboard and say my business made more money from sales in 2004 than 2003 and then 2005. So this is the power of having the right data type in your Power BI report. I can also drill down to further say I want to even see this by month. So 2003 January, we could see the flow. This was going up, and then I had the highest sales in 2004 November 2004. So a manager could quickly look at it and say, what did we do different in November 2004? What did we do different in 2003 November? Or could this mean that our peak period as a business is November of every year? Because you could see November of 2003 is high, November of 2004 is high, November of 2005 might also be high. So we could say, for example, when we start hitting October, November, we need to get ready for high sales. Probably we do a Black Friday, or we do a kind of sales promotion that brought about this type of sales. But you can see the difference between having the right data type for these two columns and having the wrong data type for these two columns. Thank you for watching this particular video. I hope you understand the concept. See you next time.